Do you know the story of Hex Shards of Fate? It's a video game that raised over $2 million and had one of the most successful Kickstarters of all time, just to be shut down completely about 5 years later.
Let me ask you another question. Do these two cards look the same to you?
Wizards of the Coast thought they did, and they were pissed. So pissed that they put these two cards right next to each other in an actual lawsuit that they delivered to a district court. We're talking about the MMO TCG Hex Shards of Fate and how Wizards sued their absolute pants off.
At the end of this, they did not have any pants.
Hi, my name's Corey Jones, and I'm the president and head of creative for Cryptozoic Entertainment.
In the beginning, Hex Shards of Fate took the gaming world by storm. Its Kickstarter campaign in 2013 became the 11th most backed game ever, and its innovative concept of blending MMO and TCG elements had everyone buzzing.
It did so well that even 10 years later, it's still in the top 100 games ever funded.
Now, this game's immense popularity and the anticipation generated by the Kickstarter success made Hex a highly anticipated release in the gaming world.
Hex Manifesto is my socials tag. My name is Ryan. I started playing Hex in the alpha. When it was released, I played until the day that the servers shut down. The majority of the community throughout was very positive. Most of us that made content knew each other, would talk to each other, work together.
However, the excitement was short-lived as a lawsuit filed by Wizards of the Coast in 2014 brought the game's development to a screeching halt.
From the outsider looking in, it seemed like once the lawsuit started, whatever money or time or whatever had to get tied up in that eventually did have a long-term effect on the game.
The lawsuit alleged that Hex copied several elements of Magic the Gathering and infringed on the intellectual property rights.
And I'm not sure when they came out and actually said publicly the first thing about the lawsuit. We all knew about it from various gamer blogs and stuff were reporting on it. And it wasn't the first time that Magic's done something like this.
The situation worried backers and fans of the game as they were unsure if Hex was ever going to see the light of day. I know that some of us have been waiting for a long time for a lot of games to come out, and sometimes they never do.
Hex's gameplay bore a striking resemblance to MTG. This obviously didn't go unnoticed by Wizards, but the community took notice as well.
The similarities between Hex and MTG were a key aspect of the lawsuit brought forth by Wizards of the Coast. Both games share a core foundation, as players collect cards and use resources to play them in a strategic battle against their opponents.
Okay, at this point in the video, if you don't know anything about MTG, that's okay. We don't want to scare you off with a bunch of jargon you won't understand. You don't have to know anything about MTG to be able to see how samey the cards we're going to show you actually are. In fact, if we get too far into the weeds with MTG details, we'll show you cute puppies playing to bring it back, like this! A blogger who discussed the two games on a popular podcast called Threshold, the Hex podcast, detailed the resemblance between the two games by comparing card types, abilities, and gameplay mechanics.
For instance, the blogger compared creature cards from Magic with troop cards from Hex, highlighting that they acted similarly and shared equivalent abilities such as Lifelink and Life Drain.
They also noted that haste in Magic is equivalent to speed in Hex, flying is flight, vigilance is steadfast, defender is defensive, first strike to swift strike, hexproof is spell shield, and trample is crush. Wait, look, puppies!
The blogger elaborated on how lands in Magic are the same as resources in Hex and how they're used to play cards.
Forest in Magic create 1 green mana, while in Hex, a resource generates 1 wild or green threshold, which is a close equivalent to green mana.
The blogger further compared the casting costs and effects of various cards.
Upping our game, look at these red pandas!
As far as to the legitimacy of the lawsuit, I think IP is a very dangerous pool to play in. But it's really hard in my mind to own certain ideas, right?
The online gaming community frequently discussed these resemblances, with some gamers claiming that Hex is essentially Magic with a few tweaks for the digital environment. Others pointed out that Hex is the closest to a Magic clone in the market, given its numerous similarities.
When it comes to the interface for this TCG, it's incredibly polished. I believe it's the best digital card interface that's ever been done.
In the lawsuit filed by Wizards of the Coast, they presented a comprehensive chart that listed the many copied elements they found unacceptable.
I know Magic has the thing, you can't use a lot of words, and that's where I think that started, because if I remember correctly, there were like 1 or 2 keywords that were the same.
Wizards of the Coast brought forth the only graphics-focused electronic version of MTG that they had with Duels of the Planeswalkers. It and Hex shared a striking number of similarities in their mechanics, graphics, the electronic interfaces. The lawsuit highlighted numerous instances where members of the gaming community expressed their confusion due to the near-identical nature of the two games.
Here's a visual representation of Hex and MTG fighting over how closely the cards seem to be related. As you can see, we've represented both parties with puppies. Hey everybody, I'm Quentin Tarantino here on behalf of Drake and Josh or Magic. Need you to do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. YouTube really judges these two. If you don't subscribe when you watch this video, if you like it, hitting that subscribe button, super free, super simple, and helps out more than you can possibly imagine. All right, that's it. Let's get back to the story.
Now look, I know some of these comparisons make the game look ridiculous, but Hex wasn't all bad, at least according to the initial promises.
I gotta tell you, nothing like this exists. It's the game that I've always wanted to play. So let's take a look at the actual game.
There's a reason that this Kickstarter was so well received. They had some great ideas that honestly sounded really fun. The game aimed to differentiate itself from competitors by incorporating MMORPG elements.
PvE is all the things you'd expect from an MMO experience: storytelling, raids, the ability to play with your friends.
One of the key PvE features planned for Hex was the addition of a dynamic campaign mode, where players could create a customizable character or champion from one of the game's 8 races and 6 classes. This character would then be used to explore an expansive world map, complete quests, and face various AI-controlled opponents. By engaging in battles and completing quests, players could gain experience points, level up their characters, and unlock new abilities and cards. Imagine any dungeon in a video game, but instead of hacking at the boss with a sword or casting fireballs at its face, you challenge it to a game of Magic. That sounds dope.
Players would have to strategize and build their decks carefully, taking into account the specific challenges and enemies they would encounter during their journey.
I can imagine with different dungeons mechanics, you'd get to really explore the card pool and not just be locked into the best meta deck, but need different mechanics to counter different bosses' fights. I would love that.
There was so much to do in the game. The game was fun as heck. I still have not played a better TCG than Hex to this day.
Another innovative aspect of Hex's PvE gameplay was the introduction of card equipment. This feature allows players to attach specific pieces of equipment to their cards, enhancing their abilities to adding new effects. This system aimed to provide an additional layer of strategy and customization, as players had to carefully consider which equipment to use with their cards to optimize their deck's performance in battles.
It's absolutely friendly for the PvP one-player casual gamer as well.
Hex also planned to incorporate MMO-style cooperative play, where players could join forces with friends or other players to tackle challenging dungeons, participate in raids, and face off against powerful bosses together.
The last thing that was supposed to be promised but wasn't really ever delivered was multiplayer dungeons, which was supposed to be basically the PvE campaign that you could play with friends. It would be something kind of akin to Commander, but instead of playing against each other, you would be playing against one big, bad, really broken deck.
This collaborative gameplay was intended to foster a sense of community and camaraderie among players, much like in traditional MMO games.
Communities were really close-knit. The streamer communities were really close-knit. The community managers for Hex were very close to the communities. There was a lot of discourse between players and the developers of the game.
Eventually, in August 2015, Cryptozoic Entertainment and Wizards of the Coast reached a settlement allowing the development of Hex to continue. Yay!
Although the terms of the settlement weren't disclosed, this is speculated that Cryptozoic Entertainment agreed to make specific changes to the game to appease Wizards of the Coast. Now, while Hex managed to survive the lawsuit, it still faced a number of challenges that would eventually lead to a dwindling player base.
One of the major issues was the lack of focus on PvE content as PvP became the central priority.
PvE was a whole animal, and it was amazing. I'm just gonna say it. You basically had this map with nodes. Every node was an encounter, and there was a story, there was voice acting, there was ridiculous scenarios where it was like you were trying to cross a lake and there was piranhas, and like the opponent starts with just all these 1/1 piranhas.
Many players had been drawn to Hex for its MMO TCG concept, but with the slow release of new PvE content, the game's community started to feel disillusioned.
Now that is sad.
Another issue was the game's monetization model, which required players to purchase card packs with premium currency. This created a barrier between player progression and effort, making it difficult for players to access the PvP scene without spending real money.
In comparison, other digital CCGs offered more accessible ways for players to earn new cards, so Hex's restrictive approach only served to push its player base away. Also sad. As time went on and Hex struggled to generate revenue, the developers were unable to keep up with the updates and the expansions necessary to compete with their rivals.
In the weeks leading up to the shutdown of Hex, the developers and the community came together to celebrate the game's life and legacy with a series of sunset celebrations.
I'm pretty sure they unlocked every card for everybody at the end, so you could build anything you wanted and play whatever you wanted.
The sunset celebrations included special in-game tournaments with unique prizes, nostalgic live streams featuring developers and popular players, and community-driven activities such as fan art contests and storytelling sessions.
Through these events, players were encouraged to share their favorite memories, decks, and strategies, as well as reconnect to old friends and rivals.
Let me know down in the comments if you've ever been a part of the sunset of a game. I know that there are a lot of good stories out there of people being online for a game's last moments before it gets shut down.
Hex Shards of Fate ultimately came to an end in December 2020. The shutdown marked a somber moment for the game's dedicated fans and developers alike, who had held on to the hope that the game would overcome its challenges and continue to grow. But WOTC squashed them like the cockroach that they were.
I'm sorry.
As the servers went offline and the Hex community said their goodbyes, the game's untapped potential became a bittersweet memory.
They had dared to dream big, attempting to combine the best aspects of trading card games like Magic the Gathering and MMOs into a single experience, but ultimately they fell short in the face of insurmountable obstacles.
Well, some of the obstacles were surmountable.
If you're going to copy someone's homework,
Change it a little.
a little teeny tiny bit.
I was 100% happy with everything that I got out of Hex. The friends I made, people I met, the games I got to play, like, it was a great couple of years for me. And I would do it all over again, even knowing if it was going to end.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. You want to party?
Sure.
If you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. Click like and subscribe. We also have a Patreon where you can support the channel on a little bit deeper level.
If you want to watch another video after this, you should definitely watch ours about a lady named Mary Ann and how she took Magic the Gathering all the way to the Supreme Court because she thought it was the devil reaching out to her children.
Or this one, where this one guy got his collection stolen and the steps he took to getting it back.
Hey, one other thing, if you know of any MTG stories that you think we should look into, we've started doing more of these videos on the channel because we like making them and it seems like you like watching them. Let us know down in the comments if you know of any MTG story that you think we should have as a video on the channel. We read every single comment, so get down there. We'll talk to you soon.
Until next time, we'll see you later. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will see you in the future. Goodbye.